Hey everybody, welcome to NLL Lacrosse Talk. I'm Gary Groob. With me, I have my special guest from the Toronto Rock, Josh Dawick, who is also has been working with Lacrosse Canada and is one of the exciting young Canadian talents, both in professional lacrosse and an up-and-coming leader, both in sports on and off the field. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Listen, the first question we ask everybody is, what made you pick up a stick?
Yeah, I was kind of just, as a kid, played everything. Played soccer, played baseball, played lacrosse, and it was really just like a rotation of sports as I was growing up. And I didn't play rep lacrosse right away. I was kind of just playing house league on the side. And as I progressed, it was like, all right, why don't we go and try out for rep lacrosse and take this thing a little bit more serious, and kind of just went from there.
Right. What made you stay in the game?
I loved it, to be honest. Like, as I continued to play lacrosse, you meet all these great people, you develop awesome friendships, and the guys I played with growing up was a super cool group. A lot of guys that are still playing these days. So just the people you meet, the memories you make, and the bonds you form, obviously set that foundation. And then the sport itself, obviously, I've come to fall in love with over my years playing.
Right. Who would you say would be an early role model as you were getting involved and really, kind of helped you get moving in the direction?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, growing up around the Rock, obviously I was pretty fortunate to be surrounded by some awesome lacrosse players, have these role models from a very young age, and learn from, legends of the game. So guys like Colin Doyle, Garrett Billings, Blaine Manning, just to name a few, are some guys I obviously grew up watching and idolizing with the Rock, and was lucky enough to learn from a lot of those guys as well. So, you could kind of pick and choose probably anyone from those Rock teams, anywhere from 2011 to 2018. And I would kind of start to name some of those guys.
Right. Now, you had a lot of success in the early days as well. And I truly believe that, you have to learn to win to become a winner. And with Team Ontario, you guys were 4-time champs. Let's talk about the program itself and, coaches, teammates, and things like that.
Yeah, that was always, an experience that we always looked forward to. When you were the major year for box lacrosse, you kind of had a good shot at making the team. And like I talked about, I grew up with some really good players, not only in Oakville, but in the province of Ontario as a whole. When you look at our Team Ontario teams growing up for the 2000 age group, probably 80% of the guys are playing in the NLL nowadays. So it's a pretty cool list. Guys, I formed relationships with, continue to have relationships with, and, being able to compete against the best of the best across the country at the end of a hard summer, playing for Oakville throughout the summer, and then you get to go and play for Team Ontario a few times, was always a really exciting experience. And being able to play with some pretty cool players, you can kind of take some things from their game and bring it back to yours.
Right. Now, I credit your dad with a lot, and especially bringing minor lacrosse in Oakville, especially back up to life and building track and the rest of that. Now, you were there through all of that and right through from the beginning of the track opening its doors. Let's talk about that, because we're talking about, I remember that in a state-of-the-art thing that nobody had seen. This is still a concept that the rest of the league envies everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, like, I don't know how many people have reaped the benefits of that building as much as I have. Like, just growing up, being able to go over there and shoot whenever I wanted. And then, you know, as I progressed and got older, work out as well. And just like that full year-round lacrosse facility, like you talked about, you don't really see that. So to be able to, as a kid, you know, kind of grow up there with my brothers, with my friends, and now to progress playing for the Rock and having practices there, exhibition games there, all of that, it is super cool. It's kind of like a second home to me. And yeah, it's very fortunate to be able to be in that facility as much as I am.
Right. Now I bring up this thing, and I brought it up to you off air. Is watching you now, you know, it's such a wonderful thing because we all grew up with you and your brothers as little kids, coming up and coming to Rock games and sitting high fiving and things like that. And of course, I had the old picture that I dug out of the archives, and here it is.
Yep.
Gotta love that from you know, circa 2015. And
Yeah.
you know, that was a big year too, because it was another year where they went to the finals, and now I believe that was as they beat Rochester in the mini game and things like that. And, but yeah, those were fun days, and you know, your whole family being there right across the way, and now we get to watch you on the floor, and it just, you know, again, a lot of us are living vicariously through you because we know you so well, and you're always part of our game day experience.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Gary. Those are, I'm glad you pulled up that picture. Like I mentioned to you, very fond memories, obviously growing up, getting to, you know, watch the Rock at the ACC. You and I always getting our high fives in after they scored a big goal. So, super cool to, you know, be in the position I am now playing for the team and kind of looking back on, you know, the whole experience. And that's certainly a part of it. So I'm glad you pulled that picture up.
All right, let's move over to Junior A. And you were drafted second overall by the Toronto Beaches. What do you remember the most about, you know, first getting in with the Beaches?
Yeah, it was like the first time for me where I really kind of had to step out of my comfort zone almost. You know, growing up playing in Oakville, had kind of the same group of guys throughout my whole minor career. And with Oakville not having a junior A team as a graduated minor, and you know, myself having ambitions to go and play junior A right away, it was an experience where I had to step out of my comfort zone. But you know, it was an easy experience because of the guys I played with. You know, it was a really good locker room. Guys that are a lot of guys that are still playing in the league, you know, today. And you know, someone from out of town that they really took me in under their wing into that group pretty seamlessly. You know, so I look back fondly on my time playing in the Beaches. You know, externally, we were kind of regarded as like underdogs in some sense, but we had some really good teams. We're the 8th seed one year and upset Burlington, who was the 1 seed in the first round of the playoffs. So some cool experiences there, and yeah, some really good players I played with as well.
Right. What was it like adjusting from going in from minor lacrosse into Junior A, and the speed and all the other things, and a lot of guys who are ready to make the leap into NLL?
Yeah, I mean, that junior age group, you know, the 5 years, you kind of get a big span of, you know, different span of players from the rookies, the 5th-year guys, some guys who are even playing in the league. So definitely a jump in speed and physicality, and certainly an adjustment. So just, you know, trying to take that game by game and continue to progress as a player as I moved through junior. And like I talked about, had some pretty good teammates that helped me along the way.
Right. What do you think was the biggest lesson you took from that level?
That's a good question. I mean, I think something, you know, lacrosse wise, I've always focused on and certainly had to in junior is I'm not the biggest guy. I'm not the fastest guy. I'm not the strongest guy. So learning how to use your skill set, put yourself in the best positions possible. You know, being able to put yourself in those positions as many times throughout the 60-minute game as possible. And, you know, at the same time, trying to work on all those things that might be some weaknesses of your game. Obviously, during the games, you want to optimize what you're good at, but, you know, practicing off the floor, trying to, add little things to your game each and every day, each and every week to become a full all around player. So I think that was just, part of my maturation of myself as a lacrosse player, and recognizing what I'm good at, maybe what I'm not good at, and what, I need to continue to work on. So those are some aspects I would point out.
Right. Now, you spent 3 years with the Beaches and they traded you to Whitby. And let's talk about that, because one story program to another story program.
Yeah. When I got traded to Whitby, it was exciting for me because, speaking about the Team Ontario teams that I talked about growing up with, a lot of those guys were on that Whitby team as well. I grew up pretty close with Dice, and I got to know Sean Williams as well through that relationship. So getting an opportunity to play for Willie, play with Dice, guys like Graydon Hogg, Sean Wesley, Adam Patra, some good players that I was familiar with, Dauber as well in the net. So it was a talented team, and guys I was familiar with prior. So definitely a cool experience to be able to step into that locker room and compete with them.
Right. Now, we go through all that, and now, of course, then the world stops and COVID happens. How did you keep yourself active during COVID to keep yourself sharp?
Yeah, I mean, stuff like the track that, I had access to, and some other guys might not have, was certainly a benefit to me. And just, just trying to take advantage of that, use that as a time, to work out. Obviously, like I talked about, not the biggest, fastest, strongest guy naturally. So, having some time away where you can kind of do things like spend some time in the gym and work out, I think I tried to take advantage of. So really just trying to do what you can each and every day, in some weird circumstances. But I'm a believer that the adversity, you come through that better. So I think everyone kind of took what they could during the pandemic. And, I just tried to use that mindset to come out better on the other side.
Right. Now, you use the word adversity, and it brings me up to my next topic. Is we get out of COVID, and the OGLL is the first one to come out with the mini tournament, and you played in that and wound up with a big time knee injury, and really the first real injury. And I always say that character is what builds champions, and you got to have it, through injuries and coming back. And what's your gumption to get back? Let's talk about you get the injury. You get the diagnosis, and now you've got to build yourself back and the road to recovery.
Yeah, I was lucky that, we say lucky. I was lucky that, coming off that injury, I was going back to school for my senior year. So I worked with a really extensive training staff throughout my, entire senior year at Denver. Owe a lot of credit to them. I also think something, I tried to do was not rush back. I knew it was gonna, take me out of my entire senior year at school. So kind of just go with the flow every day, try to get a little bit better each and every day. And I think not putting pressure on myself, timeline wise for a return was super beneficial to me. I kind of progressed through that year at my own pace naturally. And, eventually was able to come back that summer, playing senior in Ontario. So, that process was different for me. Like I said, I've never really been big time hurt like that before. So it was different. Showed obviously when you take a step away from the game, it shows you what you miss about it. So just continuing, to develop that passion for the sport of lacrosse every day, and really using the time to my advantage, working myself back up, obviously rehabbing the knee, but using that time to, work out on your upper body as well, study the game, do what you can while you're not playing. So certainly a long process, but, one I'm, after the fact, fortunate to have gone through. Definitely,
Right.
a little bit of adversity.
Has it changed your mindset on training and different ways to go about things?
I don't know. Honestly, in my case, I think it was kind of a freak injury. Certainly, has placed a little bit more of a focus in the gym on ensuring that you're keeping your strength up to date, trying to be as strong as you can at all times. But in the long term, no, not really.
Okay. So we talked about University of Denver briefly. Let's delve into that a little bit. What first off had you go there? Very storied program, 2015 champions, and been there a number of times. What drew you there?
Yeah, I committed right after they won the national championship. Obviously, they have a storied history of some pretty cool players, Canadian players
Mhm.
specifically playing there. So that was certainly a draw. Guys like Mark, who I'm fortunate enough to play alongside now. Guys like
Right.
Bergie, Jared Noble. Guys I like to watch growing up. So that was certainly a draw. Also had some familiarity with the city. I'd been to Denver a few times with my dad being such a big Broncos fan. So that was a cool aspect of it as well. And, really it just kind of felt like a place I wanted to spend my 4 years.
Right. It's interesting because a number of Canadian guys that I've had on and talking about getting into the field program, especially NCAA, and getting used to, especially playing by feel most of your life, and then more into blueprint of what field lacrosse is. Was it a difficult adjustment?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, talk about adversity. My experience at DU was kind of the first time that I had stepped into a lacrosse program and, didn't really see success right away.
Mhm.
Didn't play, to be transparent, really at all throughout my um 3 years of playing. Obviously got into a little bit of game action, which I'm fortunate for. But it was certainly a humbling experience knowing that you can't just step into anywhere and succeed right away. So I think that helped my mindset in terms of putting a stress on work ethic, and like I talked about, developing stuff like putting yourself in the optimal positions to succeed. I think when I was there, like sometimes I would try to do things that aren't me and not my game. So certainly, even though, it didn't translate to the field as much as I saw, and envisioned growing up, I take aspects from that, which I think have benefited my game, in the present day.
Right.
So overall, I really did enjoy my time there, made some, great relationships. Um, being able to be a Denver Lacrosse alumni is something I'm proud of.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a good experience.
Right. I find it funny because I talked to a lot of the guys who were in part of the Miracle in Manchester and whatever, and back then it was we played box on a field, simple. Now I
Yeah,
think we have a lot more talent to the field game where
for
guys are
sure.
actually fitting right into the programs, and then you take a look at guys like Tom Schreiber, your former teammate, and how easy it is for him to switch hands and go ambidextrous, and you see the box guy who's doing the twister and behind the back stuff, which is also throwing them off too, right?
Yeah, just a different style of play. I also like we had a pretty like deep roster. It was right during COVID as well when guys were having, fifth
Mhm.
years as well.
Right.
Um, I always yeah, I've mentioned to a few guys like I had to go up against Danny Logan in practice every day, and he's an absolute stud. So I certainly don't think that benefited me, or well, it didn't benefit me from a success in practice standpoint, but
Mhm.
getting to play against a player like that every day in the long run certainly helps you out. So just we were pretty talented and pretty deep, and you know, getting to be teammates with some of those guys and seeing how they conduct themselves is something that I've picked up on.
Absolutely. Now we go into the draft for the NLL, and I was lucky enough to be there. I seem to always be lucky enough to be there, so it's great. But watching you get drafted in the second round, 28th overall, talk about the feeling, and it's coming to Toronto.
Yeah, super cool. Obviously, the team I grew up around, you know, being able to be on the board at 28 when the Rock had their first pick, and and put that jersey on for the first time was a super cool experience. Something I, don't take for granted, and something I'm super grateful for.
Right. It was a great day because another friend of mine go just after you was Deacon Nod, and I've known him from the Peterborough days for a long time too. So watching him grow up and become the goalie he is, and watching you grow up and see the forward that you've become, that's a great draft in my eyes.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, let's talk about your first training camp. And my favorite question is always, was it what you envisioned? Now, with you, it's a different take because you were around it all your life and really
Yeah.
knew what was coming. But just being in the middle of it, was it what you expected?
Yeah, I would say it is. That's certainly a jump in terms of obviously the physicality, the speed. As a guy coming off, a major injury that, hadn't played a whole lot in the years leading up to that. It was certainly a jump. But, I give credit to my teammates, being a rookie, they really took me in and made the adjustment as easy for me, as it could have been. So that support from my teammates, from the coaching staff, from everyone, I think, really benefited me. But I would say it was what I expected. Like you said, obviously growing up around the team, even when it comes to exhibition games and all that, kind of knowing what the
Right.
structure was going to look like. I
Mhm.
think certainly served to benefit me because there wasn't any surprises from a logistical standpoint. But obviously that adjustment to the next level of lacrosse is certainly a big jump. And credit to my teammates, coaching staff for helping me through that adjustment.
Right. Let's dig a little deeper into that. To role models, like we talked about role models when you were first getting in the game. Now, role models on the team that were helping you adjust to life in the NLL.
Yeah, honestly, like all the guys on my team, I hate to give that cliche answer, but I, give credit to everyone. I think, Challen as that leader, I think certainly, helped me through that transition. Guy that, I now play alongside on the right side.
Mhm.
But really everyone, all the leadership that we had on our team, continue to have on our team. I think, they all did a really good job of kind of just allowing me to be myself, and encouraging me to do that. So I really think that, all my teammates from, a few years ago and currently have a big part in that.
Right. One guy stands out in my mind, though, and he was a teammate when you started. He moved up, and now he's one of your coaches, of course, is Dan Dawson. And talk about the bond you have with him, and to be able to elevate your game through what he's seen and what he's done.
Yeah, Doss has been a massive part of my development. Super cool experience. Like we always laugh about it. I grew up going to Doss's camps in Oakville growing up as like 6-year-old kid, looking up to someone like that. And then to be able to play alongside him in my first year. And then he moved into his role in player development. I think, I owe a lot to him. He took me under his wing in that second year when he was kind of under that new role, really like encouraged me all the time. Hey, let's go work out. Let's go shoot. When you have the opportunity to learn from someone like that, who's done so much throughout his career, who's won at the highest level is a big deal for sure. So, I'm very fortunate that I've been able to learn under Doss, and then obviously this year with him taking the jump, being the bench as our offensive coach, that just continuing to develop that relationship. But yeah, he's certainly been a big part of my development, and I'm really fortunate to have a guy like that who's had the career that he is, and is the person that he is, be in my corner.
Right. Another one that comes to mind actually is, and it's on the other side, but really, I think that you gained a lot from him just by watching the way you analyze the game and the way you take your shots. Is Corey Small, because it's more than
Yeah,
just a shot. It's knowing where to be. It's your footwork. It's how to not being the biggest guy out there, but being able to use it to your ability and use your cunningness to get into the spots.
yeah, I agree with that as well. Corey's one of my favorite teammates I've ever had. Super nice guy, and probably in recent memory the best shooter of the lacrosse ball that I've kind of been around. Definitely some similarities in our game, as you mentioned. So being able to play alongside Corey, opposite him on the floor, was very beneficial for myself as well. Watching him and him being able to put himself in those, like I was talking about, positions to succeed, and utilize that awesome shot that he has is things that I've tried to add to my game. So I'm glad you brought him up, and certainly, another teammate that I've been very lucky to play alongside.
Right. Now, both those guys aren't in the lineup now, but the person that I think you have the most chemistry with is Chris Bushi. You guys are always looking at where each other is on the floor. I know that watching you in particular, you always have one eye on what he's doing, whether it's behind the net, whether it's in the dirty area, whatever. And you guys seem to mesh perfectly with your passes and things like that, and really create a lot of havoc in front of the net.
Yeah. Bush is a guy that, even regardless of what he's doing on the stat sheet, does things to benefit the team. A guy that is fully capable of going out there and scoring 5 goals a night. But even if he doesn't, he's benefiting us with, banging bodies inside, doing stuff for a player like me, getting myself open, hard loose balls. He's a hard guy to play against. So, being able to play alongside him is certainly, beneficial for myself. Last year with, Tom being out for a lot of the season, Bush and I got a lot of reps up there, and, we're able to build up some chemistry. So he's a guy that, works really hard for me to get my looks. And I'm certainly lucky to have a player like that in the lineup alongside myself.
Right. Well, last year I was a stranger because of injuries, and you really had an opportunity because you moved your way from being a practice squad guy, getting in a few games here and there. Still, every time you got in, you got on the score sheet one way or another. But really, over the last couple of years, you found your way to really find your niche in that lineup and with everybody. Last year was a fantastic year for you, though the team wasn't doing as great. And again, we're talking about adversity, right? You have to lose just like you have to learn to win in order to build character, and that helps everybody get to the next level. Talk about last year specifically, and I want to actually go a little bit before the season, and that would be the Worlds. And you joined Team Austria. And I think that was really where your wings spread for the first time. You came in and could have been the guy, but you were the teammate. And you listened, you learned, you worked with everybody in there, became one of them, and everybody became comfortable. And that whole unit became that much more cohesive because of that.
Yeah. Speaking about the experience at the Worlds, something I was really fortunate to be able to do. My grandma was born in Austria, so I kind of always had it on my radar as something that, I might be able to do. And they really pride themselves on developing their program in-house, which is great. They want to, see that talent that they build in Austria, take those steps to be able to play on those teams. So for them to be able to accept me on the team was a big deal. And, I give them credit for that. It's a really cool group. It's guys that are super passionate about lacrosse, who have nowhere near the same resources that we have over here. It's just like they've built their whole program on hard work, passion, determination. So shout out to the Austrian lacrosse guys, a really good group. And that tournament itself was a super cool experience. Like being able to be the guy in that locker room that had the most lacrosse experience, and, being able to say to some of those guys that, maybe hadn't played at that level before, be able to give them some tips and some pointers and see them implement it to their game was super humbling, super rewarding. And really just a great experience. So, that being able to play, I don't know, 7 games in 6 days or whatever, it felt like we were back at the Prezi, but it was a very cool experience. Very grateful for the group of guys and the coaching staff that, I shared that experience with. And, in terms of lacrosse, certainly an opportunity where I was able to get, more opportunity And yeah, an experience I look back fondly on.
Right. Now, I've had a lot of experience with the European lacrosse because I've been doing the Rabeski tournament with the Gales for a number of years, and I've been able to watch European lacrosse elevate itself every year in big chunks. It doesn't go in little crawls. Every time I see them, it's like holy smokes. And I think about it to about '80s hockey, where if you don't start thinking about what they're doing over in Europe, they're going to be moving themselves up and around North America.
For
Do
sure.
you see the same idea? Because a lot of guys are going over to coach from North America now.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things you see guys from North America going and giving back to these programs. I think is super cool. And like, I mean, I only really have experience with the Austrian guys, so I'll kind of just speak to them. But these are guys that, like I said, they don't have the same resources that we have. Their program is built all on passion, all on determination, all on love for the game. So really, like, those guys deserve some credit for being able to build their programs and the Austrian program to what it is right now. And it's really cool to see, like, we're from different parts of the world, but you can still talk about a 2-man game, and you can still, talk about how to score on a goalie. You can kind of, it was cool to learn some more about their culture and just, implement myself in that group. So, the development of lacrosse worldwide is, only going to benefit everyone that's a part of the sport. So, being able to be a part of that group and do whatever I can to help them through that tournament and, continued. I still talk to those guys all the time. So, it is something that's super cool.
Right. And now with NLL Plus, a lot of these guys are able to watch you week in and week out and watch your development too, and seeing that, he helped us get to where we were.
Yeah, super cool platform. Props to the NLL for putting that out, for making it free. For those guys, like, when that came out, they were super excited. They'll like stay up in the middle of the night and watch the games, which, like I talked about, that dedication. I'll wake up on Sunday morning and have texts from all those guys saying, "Great game last night. Like, way to pull that one out." So yeah, like I talked about, just speaks to their determination, speaks to their passion and love for the game. Which is really cool to see in Europe and in Austria specifically.
Right. Now that ties me in again to last season with the Rock. And again, with the injuries, you became the guy. And you were the leading scorer, 42 goals, 75 points, all career highs. But more importantly, you started taking on more of a leadership role on the floor. You're not the rookie anymore. Now you're actually helping some of the guys like Zach Kearney and some of the other guys who are coming up and how to stay a pro.
Yeah. Last year was a weird year because obviously with all the injuries that we had off the bat, myself personally, I was kind of thrust into a role where it was, I mean, essentially like a sink or swim spot. I was going to get my opportunities, and it was kind of up to me to take advantage of them. For me as a lacrosse player personally, it was super beneficial because I got those chances to, take X amount of shots a game that I might not have otherwise gotten to take. And, kind of develop, not only myself as a lacrosse player, but, as a figure in the locker room, on the floor with the offensive unit. Also, I last year, as bad as it was for us, I think it'll certainly help us going forward. The Rock over the past, really throughout history, has always kind of been in there in contention. So last year was certainly an off year, and kind of reminded our group that, it's not going to come easy in this league anymore. Everyone's so talented. The margin of error is so slim. Like, you don't really get to circle any games on the schedule and be like, hey, like, we're going to go and win tonight. So I think that, down year, not only did it provide us with some pretty phenomenal players in the draft that I'm sure we'll talk about, but, continue to fuel that fire and that desire to win. The need to work hard and work harder than some other people to fuel that success, I think has, come with us into the off season and now into the start of the year. So although, last year certainly didn't go our way, and we don't anticipate being in that position again. Trying to take some positives from it moving forward.
Right. Now, you mentioned the draft, of course, and you got some absolutely phenomenal players. CJ Kurz is just an absolute stud. Owen Hiltz, another absolute stud, and different styles and how everything meshes. It looks like you guys have got onto the same page. It may have taken a game or two to kind of figure each other out, but it seems like you all are back on track. One of the things I've noticed, though, and people are saying that, your points structure may go down, of course, with Mark as the quarterback, and he's back. But I see you actually continuing that leadership role on the floor and actually doing more than you did before everybody got hurt. You see the same?
Yeah, it's like I talked about, it's certainly going to be different this year with, all the talent that we have out there, guys like Mark back, guys like CJ and Hiltzy inserted into the lineup. We were kind of laughing about it the other day, like the first preseason game, it was great. And I don't know, we scored 16 goals or something and everyone played well. And it was like, we got so much talent. This is going to be a breeze. And obviously that's not how things go in the NLL. So, I don't think we've pieced together a full 60 yet. I think, last week's game against San Diego was certainly a step in the right direction. Where we're learning to play with each other, learning, each other's play styles, because it is a fairly new unit. But we're lucky to have the amount of talent out there that we do. So, as you talked about, myself, not only putting myself in those positions for me to succeed, but, trying to do what I can as well to help my teammates and put them in the right positions, because we have some really good players out there. And, if everyone's doing what they're good at, good things are going to happen.
Well, yeah. And deep, my God, not a challenge coming out the front door because you're deep in defense. The offense is just, from every angle, you guys have something going on at some point. And, balls may not have dropped in the first couple of games. They're starting to. And, that should put the league on notice that if they're falling, look out, because there's a lot of guys that can do it.
Yeah, we're confident. Like I said, we haven't put in a full 60 minutes looking at our unit, but we're continuing to try to make those strides every week. We get a good, unique mix this year where we have shooters, we have dodgers, we have physical pick guys, we have grit. We have kind of everything that you want in a unit. So it is really about just continuing to mesh, continuing to develop that chemistry, and putting a full 60 minutes together. Because like you talked about, I feel confident in our group, and I think we'll be pretty tough to beat once we're able to do that.
Right. And I think a really unsung thing on your team really is the transition game. When you have guys like Maz and you have guys like Justin Martin that can just, run like a dime. And, when they're going full tilt, nobody is sure what's going on the opposition. And that opens up the offense too.
Yeah. I mean, certainly as an O guy, when things aren't going smoothly and your D guys can get you a few goals, it really does, take some of that pressure off. It can jumpstart a run. Everyone on our back end can run in transition and put the ball in the net. Like Sam English is ridiculous when it comes to that as well. So we do have those transition threats, and really grateful as an offensive player when guys from the back end are able to chip in, because, it allows you to not take a foot off the gas, but when things aren't going smoothly, you can, know that there's guys back there that can kind of bail you out of that groove. So yeah, certainly another positive when it comes to our team.
Right. Now, I want to go back a little bit. We talked about the Prezi just briefly, and I want to talk about that 2023 President's Cup over at track and the team that you guys had and all the fun. But to me, excuse me, the toughest competition, I think, is the Prezi, because you're doing something like 7 games in 5 days and then playoffs, and it's just it's wild. If you're making it to the end, you need depth, because man, you are done by the end of this thing.
The Prezi's a grind. We were pretty fortunate that tournament was at the track. So for us, we were able to, go in the ice bath, go in the hot tub, have access to those resources. I can't even for me, living in Oakville, being close to home, I
Mhm.
can't even really imagine what that tournament looks like, just being in regular locker rooms, staying in hotel rooms for a week. It's certainly a grind. So, yeah, I think it was 7 games in 5 days or something crazy like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But yeah, certainly a cool experience that I look back fondly on.
right. Now you go back into MSL with the Oakville Rock, and last year you wore the C. Let's talk about that. And you know, we already knew you had the leadership abilities. Now they had the faith to put the C on you, and here you go. Here's your team, and it's in a rebuild as well. So you have a lot of young guys there.
Yeah, a little bit of a younger team. It's a role I've always been comfortable, doing. Growing up playing minor lacrosse, that was always, something that came naturally to me. Being able to be a leader, whether that be vocal, whether that be on the floor, whatnot. Um, and then, yeah, through the next, I don't know, X amount of years of my career, wasn't really relied upon as that much of a leader per se. So to be put back in that role this summer was super. I was an experience I was super grateful for. Something that just like playing lacrosse is a skill, being a leader is a skill, and you got to work at that to you know continue to get better at. So to have that experience this summer was something that was super cool. And with a younger group, we were kind of all on the same page when it comes to stuff like that. So um, grateful to be put in that position.
Right. It's funny because I love summer ball. I actually love the format of it more than NLL. Um, why can't we get butts in the seats? Other than the obvious, it's summertime and people want to be outdoors. But for a couple hours in an evening, why do you think that the attendance, other than Peterborough, is uh, next to non-existent?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't really have a good answer for you, to be honest, Gary. It's something that lacrosse would benefit to figure out from NLL summer ball.
Mhm.
It's such a great sport, and I mean, like, obviously I'm biased, but when I'm watching a lacrosse game or watching a hockey game, like, to me, I just see lacrosse as such a more interesting sport. It's fast, it's physical, there's more goals.
Mhm.
Um, so it's, that golden question that is yet to be answered. I mean, the visibility aspect of it is certainly something that, continues to progress.
Right.
And it really is like, if you bring someone to a game, they're going to love it. It's such an interesting sport to watch and really engaging. So that golden question of solving the visibility issue, why people aren't watching lacrosse at the same level as some of these other sports, is something that continues to get better, and we continue
Mhm.
to see this progress, but certainly still some strides and progress to be made.
Because on the fan side, A, it's cheaper. B, you guys are much more accessible at the end of a game in MSL or OSL or whatever, and as opposed to NLL where it's kind of separated like NHL, really.
Yeah,
And it's so much easier to go and chat afterwards, and just be more accessible, really.
for sure. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I talked about that golden question. Like, if you get someone out, obviously they're going to come back because the product's there and whatnot. But something that will hopefully continue to get better as the game progresses, as the game moves towards like landmark events like the Olympics in 2028 and whatnot.
Right. I want to go a little bit off field stuff with you because you did a little work with Lacrosse Canada. Um, and let's talk about that, being involved in sponsorship and what you went to school for, and sports
Yep.
management and all that. Let's talk about your role with them and what was entailed.
Yeah, I was in the partnerships department at Lacrosse Canada. Um, Smaller team, so I was able to kind of take on roles, marketing roles, kind of be able to bridge whatever gaps you deem necessary. So
Mhm.
it's an exciting time for the sport, obviously leading up to the Olympics in 2028, and an experience I was grateful to have.
Right. Are we spending enough time on grassroots? And I ask you as an expert, since you've been in all of these things, whether it's been grassroots, whether it's been in club, whether it's been in junior A. I had Mark Millen on, and he was adamant that we spend a lot of time and a lot of money, both U.S. and Canada, on guys who want to become pro. But the guys who just love the game and really don't have any interest in becoming pro, but just do it because they love the game, kids and all the rest of it, we don't have the efforts and we don't have the money to put into the house leagues and things like that. Are we missing the boat, you think?
I think grassroots is certainly an important aspect of growing the game. Whether that be getting into the schools. I think the NLLs with their Unbox program has recognized that as an issue and trying to solve it. Kind of like what I talked about with regards to the visibility of people watching the game. Same thing with playing the game. Like it's if you put a lacrosse stick in someone's hands, I'm sure they're going to have a good time. So I do think it's an important part of growing the game. I think it's all tied in. Like if you want to watch lacrosse on TV, you're going to want your kids to play the sport as well. You're going to want it to be in the school. So it's an all encompassing thing. And, I think with the Olympics on the horizon and that, international stage that the sport's going to be showcased on, I think is a really important opportunity that everyone involved has to be ready for, because people are going to come back and say, hey, I watched this sport on TV where, Team Canada is going to win gold or silver in men's and women's. You can kind of say that candidly. That's going to be what the case will be. So there's going to be a lot of visibility and, grassroots and taking advantage of that interest and actually translating that into signups and whatnot is super important.
Yeah. I've always been on my soapbox about linear TV because we've tried all kinds of social programs and, tried it on different platforms, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be on an app, whether it be on this or on that. And really, I still think that because I've tried it, putting a game and Chromecast it in a bar and watching faces slowly turn and everybody's watching the game because it's addictive. I don't know anybody who's watched it and doesn't like it. I've never taken anybody to a game and they wanted their time back.
Yeah, for sure.
And, I've watched it with a tablet in front of me at a bar, sitting at the bar. And before you know it, there's all kinds of people around me looking over my shoulder at this thing.
Yeah.
So are we missing the boat with not having an all-star game, do you think, in the NLL?
That's a good question. I think logistically it's difficult because of just the time slot of the season and, guys having full-time jobs on the side. I think logistically it is a little bit of a problem. As far as a product, it would be an entertaining watch. I think with the All-Star games, like when you look at other sports, it's important to, do it right. I think, I think the baseball All-Star game is super cool. Those guys are into it. I think when you look at what the NHL did with the Four Nations this past season, I think was something cool where you were able to generate that passion. But then when you look at something like the Pro Bowl and the NFL, like obviously with the nature of that sport, they're not hitting each other. No one really looks like they want to be there. So I think to, have a successful All-Star game, you need to have some sort of motivation behind it that gets the players interested and is able to take advantage of putting all the best players in the world together on one floor at the same time and really being able to take advantage of that product. So it's certainly an interesting question and certainly would be something that would be a cool aspect going forward. Just how you make that work from the motivation standpoint and the logistics.
Let me give you a scenario because I'm sorry Frank isn't here. He had come up with this idea way back, and it had to do with really the way the NHL did it many, many years ago. And it's the champion of this year hosts next year's All-Star game. So they have 6 or 7 months to market it. Now, they are the team on one side, and the NLL All-Stars are the other one. So now there's something in the game. Let's say it's Buffalo, right? Buffalo doesn't want to lose to the All-Stars, and the All-Stars certainly don't want to lose to Buffalo. So all of a sudden, there's more skin in the game. Yeah. And fans win. And then you can also have your skills competition, because who doesn't want to watch, some of the greatest players in the world doing some of the greatest, feats with stick tricks and anything else, as well as speed and all the other things that come along with it.
For sure. I think, yeah, similar to like what the MLB used to do with whoever won the All-Star game was the higher seed in the World Series. And if it went to Game 7, obviously would host that. So aspects like that where the motivation is there naturally, I think is super important. I think skills competitions would be cool. I mean, watching just like a penalty shootout of the best players in the world, the best goalies in the world, having some sort of bracket in that sense, and seeing who comes out on top of that, I think is a cool idea. So yeah, it's, I mean, way more ways in which you can put an exciting product on the field for the fans and get more eyes on the sport, I think is super important. So yeah, some cool ideas you raise.
Right. Just a little bit of State of the Union questions before we wrap her up. From your perspective, what do you think the current state of lacrosse in Canada is right now?
That's a great question. I think that, lacrosse having the storied history that it does, being Canada's national summer sport, the product, like I talked about, is so great. Like when you turn on a game, when you go to a game, you leave, thinking that was a great usage of my time. I think that, it's important for everyone leading up to the Olympics. I think the Olympics is a very big moment because you're going to get people watching lacrosse that don't watch lacrosse. Yeah. So being able to take advantage of that and translate that into elevated success for the sport over the next 4 years, hopefully leading up to the 2032 Olympics, and then continued growth and success, I think is super important. So I think, as well, the NLL's done a good job at trying to, get more eyes on the sport, market it properly, all that aspect. So, hopeful for the future of the sport. As, someone that's involved, would love to see it take the next, leap and become mainstream, among some of these other sports, because the product is so good, and it's really just about getting people's eyes on it, and they'll be hooked.
Right. Are we healthier than we were 5 or 10 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say we are.
Okay. To get young Canadian players to succeed long term, is there anything that we should change, or do we need to just keep going the way we're going?
No, I think we need to keep going the way we're going. I always talk about like the format of sports in Ontario, and I mean, I've grown up in lacrosse, so I'll speak to lacrosse as well. I think is the best in the world. Being able to play for your city throughout the entire summer, go and play road games, and just the format of lacrosse, I think is the best in the world in Ontario. Right. I think that box lacrosse play style, like you talked about, translates to field lacrosse, and you see that growing in the US as well. They're, realizing the importance of box lacrosse. So, yeah.
I don't know if you're aware, I was voted onto the board for OSL. So,
okay,
I'm
cool.
on there too. So a few more different ideas. So, and more media coverage. So, from El Capitan Picks, your favorite road arena to play
in? Good question. I mean, Buffalo's a fun place to play. I think the league dropped the ball with, us not playing there this year. As someone that's involved in it, it's, in my opinion, the best rivalry in lacrosse. And I mean, on the scale of like sports in general, I think it is an awesome rivalry. Things are going to happen when Toronto plays Buffalo. So, credit to their fans and the energy they have in their building, makes it a cool place to play. Playing in Denver this past year as well was super cool. Going to school there. My girlfriend's from there, so her family, we had a bunch of friends there as well. Was a super cool experience as well. So those are two that I point out.
Right. What excites you the most about the next generation of lacrosse players?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the younger guys that are coming up through the game, whether it be junior, NCAA, and then into the NLL, like everyone is so skilled. I think as the sports continue to progress, and you know, everyone's athletic, everyone is super skilled. Everyone, the style of play just continues to progress over the years. So I think you saw the same thing happen in the NHL,
Hmm.
from how the game was 20 years ago to where it is today. Just more people playing. The resources that people have access to in the sport, I think, continues to progress. So as these young players continue to come up through the game and take prominent roles in the NLL in whatnot, I think the game will just continue to benefit.
Right. Loose Mess Podcast is giving you a question. The likelihood of an Emerson Clark gash fight. Shall they get the socials going already?
Yeah, that's a good question. As not one of those individuals, I don't have the answer to that, but I guess we'll have to see.
Absolutely. Is there coaching in your future?
Yeah, I love coaching. I'm, being able to coach Rock Elite League, help out with the Rock Stars, summer camps and whatnot. I always feel that I have a responsibility to give back to the game. So it's something I enjoy doing. Whether I do that at the next level, I'm not too sure, but I really do enjoy being able to provide some of the things that I've learned to the next generation, and it is something I do enjoy doing.
Right. Just briefly, we talked about the Olympics. Just kind of touching it. What are your thoughts on sixes?
Yeah, I mean, there's it's an interesting question because I do understand the logic behind sixes, in terms of lowering the barriers to entry worldwide, trying to lower that competitive gap. So, these nations that may be lagging behind are able to, participate and compete. Also, when it comes to not needing as many players, not needing as much equipment, there certainly is benefits, and it is a fun game to watch. When it comes to the pace, and it really is kind of just like box lacrosse on the field. I'm personally a box lacrosse. That's my favorite version of the sport. So
Right.
when it comes to the Olympics, I wish that was the version of the sport that could be played, but I understand the thought process behind, sixes being a way to accelerate the growth of lacrosse across the entire world. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see how that plays out with the Olympic involvement, where that version of the sport goes. But box lacrosse will always be 1-1 for me.
Right. It's funny because I had Bob DeMarco on the show, president of World Lacrosse, and we asked him why sixes, and he told me something I never even thought of was, according to the Olympic Committee, they can only have 10,000 athletes, which include trainers, coaches, all together for the
Yep.
Olympics. So if you're going to bring lacrosse teams and you're going to bring a field team and you're going to have 24 players and you're going to have coaches and trainers and this, you're only going to get 2 teams in there. So if you want
Yeah.
to be competitive, sixes is the way to go because you can bring 14, 15 guys, a couple of coaches, and bring in 6, 7 teams, both men and women, and actually be competitive. And I never really thought about it that way. Also, to keep it that the African countries and things like that, um, to be able to join because there's not a lot of hockey rinks down in Africa and things like that.
For sure. Logistically, it certainly makes sense. This style of sixes is still so new. So it'll be interesting to see how that progresses, throughout the years, and really, where that style of the sport goes.
Right. Another one from Loose Mesh Pod. What's the pressure like playing for your dad? And how do you balance the professional side and family side of things?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's nothing we've really ever had to deal with in terms of pressure. Um, I'm grateful that, my dad gave me an opportunity to play in the National Lacrosse League when, I had gone through a few years of adversity in terms of lacrosse. So for him to know my game and to give me an opportunity is something, that I'm super grateful for. In terms of the professional side and family side of it, it's nothing we've really had a problem with.
Right.
He loves me whether I play great or I don't play great the night before, and something that doesn't affect that. So, it's kind of something that we've just dealt with our entire lives and is kind of just natural.
It's funny because I had a famous father for music. He was a world-renowned conductor and violin player, and when I was breaking into the music industry, he cast a huge shadow. So if anything, it was more of a detriment of trying to get out of that shadow while I was making my way through doing opera and doing musicals and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Having it going, oh, he got the job because of no. I was held to a much higher esteem to try and break into it. There was no
Yep.
off days if you were part of that. And I see that also as being that kind of the pressure that you might be under or that you might put yourself under, whereas it might not be there, but you put yourself under that.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's certainly a dynamic that has come into play. I've always been confident in the player that I am, and the skill set that I have. So something I, try not to let ever kind of exist. But, I'd be naive to obviously not say that that's a factor in some sense. So, hopefully as I continue to, put my time in the league and continue to prove myself, something I don't really have to talk about.
Okay. One more. It's from Daily Dive. Is TJ Kerr's leading the Rock in points? Is that a surprise to the team, or do you all expect him to be this good so early?
Yeah, CJ's a stud. Is it a surprise? I mean, no. When you've seen what CJ has done in his career, when you see him behind the scenes and how hard he works, how much he loves the sport, how nice of a guy he is. No, it's not a surprise. He's continued to develop in the box lacrosse game as, weeks progress, and I give him a lot of credit for that. I don't know how many goals he has in our 4 games so far, but I certainly don't see any signs of him slowing down. So he's a stud. Lucky to have him on our side, and fortunate to be able to play with a player like that so early in his box lacrosse days, where he still has so much room to be one of the best players in the game.
Right. One last one, just advice for up and coming kids who want to break in and want to move their way up. What's the best advice you have for them?
Yeah, work hard first and foremost. I mean, obviously that's advice you're going to get from anyone. It's super important, whether that be on the floor with your with your stick in your hands, in the gym, watching film. Something I did growing up, trying to watch players that I admire and add things to your game. And then I've talked about it a little bit, but finding your niche, finding what you're good at, and putting yourself in those positions as many times as you can throughout 60 minutes to succeed. And at the same time, acknowledging what your weaknesses are and working on them on the side. Obviously, for me, I'm not going to ever be the biggest guy and ever clear guys out of the way as, some of these other guys do, but, continuing to work on stuff like that. And, not only acknowledging your strengths, but your weaknesses as well, and trying to mitigate those.
Right. So I really want to thank you. I know you got a big weekend coming up with Toronto and Rochester, another big game. And I really want to thank you for taking the time to talk with me for the last hour or so, and go through your life in lacrosse.
Of course, yeah, it's a pleasure to do it, Gary. Happy to sit down and speak. It's been great. Thank you for the support. It's great. Like we talked about, being able to high five after the Rock were scoring goals growing up, and now knowing that I have you in my corner is something I really appreciate. So thanks for having me on, and it was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Remember, we can see NLL Lacrosse Talk every Thursday at 4, sometimes a couple of special times for anything that we need to do. But usually Thursdays at 4 o'clock. please check us out and on all the social media pages as well. Until next week, remember, keep your sticks high, keep your spirits higher, and we will see you again next week.